Welcome to the Future Fit Edge podcast, your launchpad into a smart future. In this era of exponential disruption, the choice is crystal clear. Reinvent or be left behind, whether you are at your peak or facing new challenges. I am Cindy Montgenie, your guide, inviting you behind the scenes of strategic reinvention. As a former tech executive turned future of work explorer and reinvention strategist, I have equipped thousands of leaders worldwide to not just navigate ambiguity, but thrive in it. Each power-packed episode decodes the strategies of top executives who are tackling today's toughest challenges to stay future fit and transform their organizations, communities, or industries for a brighter tomorrow. Tune in for stellar insights, practical frameworks, and cutting-edge mindset shifts that will set you apart. The future is unstoppable. Are you ready to be unstoppable too? Hit subscribe and join me on this exciting journey. Welcome to another excited episode of the Future Fit Edge podcast with another accomplished guest. Our guest today is Katya Fisher. Katya is a legal tech leader. She's the founder and CEO of a legal tech company, Aracor. Katya is an expert on legal technology, artificial intelligence, and leadership, with a deep understanding on how AI is transforming legal processes. With years of experience leading both legal and tech teams, Katya brings unique insights into innovation, strategy, and the future of the legal industry. She's also a mentor, and she teaches young professionals at Florida State's College of Law. So welcome, Katya, and thanks a lot for stopping by today for this exciting conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Cindy.
So let's dive in. There is a 2023 report from Goldman Sachs that estimates that AI could automate up to 44% of current legal tasks. How do you think these stats could shape the future of lawyers?
So I think it's going to transform the legal profession in a way that we've never seen before. So it's very funny, 20 years ago, I was working in the music industry and I worked with some of the big record labels. And it was right around the time that Napster came and file sharing. And there was all this discussion coming from the bottom up about this big tsunami of what's coming because of tech, streaming, all of that. And the record labels still not really understanding what to do about it. And should they be for it? Should they be against it? Should they this? Should they that? And I'm seeing kind of the same thing happen in law right now. I've seen that all the big law firms, small law firms as well, have AI committees. Everybody's looking at artificial intelligence, but no one's really sure how to harness it or what it means or what it's going to mean for how the business of law is done. My thought process really is that it's going to make law firms have to become much leaner, much more agile, and much more tech focused. I think that the billable hour, I don't think that it's dead, but I certainly think that the way that we look at billable hours and how lawyers are compensated is going to change significantly. So a big thing is, a lot of the time that lawyers spend is on reading documents, reviewing documents, going through massive volumes of documents. You see it in e-discovery for litigation, you see it for contracts, you see it for mergers and acquisitions. AI technology is speeding all of that up at an unprecedented rate, so that I don't think it replaces very high value lawyers, but a lot of the routine stuff that we as attorneys spend many, many, many hours on, that's all going to be taken away and taken over by technology. And so the question really becomes, when you look at big law firms and these hourly rates and how they're also training younger attorneys, associates, et cetera, I think all these things are going to change exponentially. I think that what companies expect from their in-house counsel and external counsel is going to change. I think that you are going to have more access to justice for companies and individuals who maybe can't afford those super expensive legal services, because now there's so much access to information and knowledge, and you can do things in such a much, much faster sort of DIY way than we've ever been able to before. So it's really a exciting time.
Yes. So transformation of the business model, the nature of the work, and greater access to justice. Those are like really positive outcomes to expect. You are a lawyer, and now you are a tech CEO, and you are at the forefront of the legal tech innovation. How did your journey lead you to this intersection of the legal world, technology, and the startup world? Because this is kind of unique.
So, my journey really started, first of all, because I've always been very entrepreneurial. I started out having my own law practice years ago. I was then a partner in a firm. I then became an in-house counsel, but I'm a general counsel overseeing a group of companies. So sort of I had to build practices and build out the department myself. When it came to tech, I've been working with tech companies for years and representing them. So I've always been tech adjacent. And it's really funny when you're a lawyer working in software, because you are next to all these great minds in software. You see everything that goes on in tech. And yet, I guess I don't think it's uncommon just for me as a lawyer, you don't start thinking about software building yourself. That seems so far removed from the training that an attorney has and how we do business. But being surrounded by it for so long, I did really start to think about it. And I started thinking about automation a couple of years ago, and the things that I do in my daily work and people in my team do that it's just a waste. It's a waste, not just, oh, we could do things faster, we can, save money, but it's a waste in terms of things like memory, human memory, and knowledge management. So let's say in my team, I see it all the time. Everyone forgets everything because there's too much to remember. So we will do a deal 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and there's certain legal questions. And then 3 years later, we're doing another deal and the same questions come up, and everybody has to research those questions again, look through the files again, talk to external lawyers, right? When really we already did that a long time ago. But to find and access that knowledge, that email thread, that deal, those folders, it's very hard. But if you have AI that sort of grows with you as a team, you're able to harness all that internal knowledge. And so those types of things I started thinking about very strongly. And I was just very fortunate to be surrounded by people in tech and be able to start incubating a business where I had the competitive advantage of having access to the best developers and then having a legal team where we could test our ideas in real time on a daily basis.
Yeah, so it was a combination of having the skills and having access to the talent and the resources. And as you mentioned, some law firms are already looking at AI, but they don't know exactly what to do and they're not making any meaningful progress. And you are at the forefront of this innovation. So what do you see as the main obstacles to tech adoptions in law firms? And what kind of leadership do you think it's required for law firms to transition into this AI world?
So I will just tell you that, for example, for me, for our software, we stopped really pursuing law firms. We're happy to work with them. We'd love to work with them, but we started really working with businesses and in-house legal teams.
Okay.
And the reason for that is just alignment of interests. When we take a look at lawyers who work in-house, I know them. I know what they go through every day, because it's what I go through every day, right? And the thing is that we have a completely different job, which is, first of all, we have to work fast. We have to be agile. We have a mandate to keep external costs down, right? We want to be able to look at things in a very holistic manner. We're not encouraged to spend time writing, a 40-page memorandum. We're encouraged to just figure out the solution to the problem and solve it on the spot. We have to work cross teams and cross-functionally. I work very closely with finance. I work very closely with procurement, with sales, with marketing, with business, right? And so for us, going ahead and upskilling using AI tools, using software, it makes a lot of sense because it's a way to just work more efficiently within a team. With law firms, it's a bigger challenge because there's a misalignment of interests. Going back to the hourly rate, right? So you have several challenges, which I'm sure law firms are working on solving these issues, and I'm sure they will, but these are the challenges that they face. The first thing is, you have a model where everything is based on a billable hour, right? So the amount of time that you spend as an attorney reviewing documents, why would you want to go ahead and shrink that? Why would you want to say to the client, oh, never mind, it's not 10 hours, it's 20 minutes, right? So it's not really in the lawyer's best interest when they're trying to get as much revenue generated as possible from the clients. It's much better to say, yeah, the AI, it helps a little bit, but I still have to oversee and read everything, right? So they have a different attitude towards it. The next big challenge you have has to do with education and skilling in the legal profession. So traditionally, law students, when they go to law school, they learn theory, but they don't learn practice. You don't graduate from law school knowing how to be a lawyer. You graduate from law school knowing how to think like a lawyer. And traditionally, it's the law firms that train you into becoming a lawyer, right? You get that experience. And the cost of that training, most of it is passed on to clients, right? So when you're paying at a top law firm a very high billable hourly rate for somebody who just graduated from a top law school, they don't know what they're doing. Not really, right? You're paying for them to learn and build these things forward. And so the challenge is that, and I think law firms are very aware of this and concerned about it, if clients start to refuse that model because they say, I don't want to pay for these associates to just read a bunch of documents and tell me what they say, or mark up contracts that could easily be done by AI tools, who's going to train that new generation of lawyers? It's not just about the revenue coming into big law firms. It's actually very dangerous because you don't want an unskilled workforce. You want to make sure that lawyers of the future, that will soon become mid-career and then senior level lawyers, that they have that work experience. So we need to rethink kind of the entire model, all the way from legal education, to client service. And that's massive. So that's not a problem that I think that I'm going to be able to solve, but it's one that I certainly see all around me. And, a big thing from my side is just I know how much bloat there is in law firms. I've received legal bills that were absolutely outrageous for work that didn't really need to be performed, right? And I now know that I have tools that I can reduce that dramatically. And that makes companies very happy and in-house lawyers happy. I don't know how it works out for lawyers in law firms.
Awesome. So now that your focus is on in-house lawyers, can you share an exciting legal tech innovation that you think will have a huge impact on transforming the industry?
Sure. Well, I mean, obviously the whole thing that we're talking about right now, artificial intelligence in general at a very, very basic level, this is what it is. I think it's very transformative. I think that, a big challenge right now is most people are not familiar and deeply ingrained enough in the technology to really understand the differences between tools, how to choose which software to work with, etc. And so these are the things that I think that anyone who's interested should really be aware of, because it's going to sort of inform how we do things. So the first thing is that these language models, large language models like ChatGPT, Anthropic, Mistral, Llama, the list goes on. They're great because they've basically sourced all the data from the web, and it's like a giant brain, right? But the way that I try to explain it to people is, imagine that an LLM is like a really, really, really smart freshman in college. The potential is there. A general basic knowledge of the world is there, but they haven't been given the skills yet to be truly specialized. And so that's where the AI software companies that are coming in that are utilizing those models really come in, because you have to start looking at things that are more specialized, targeted, specific, right? So, for lawyers, you want to make sure that it's AI that's trained to behave the way someone in your legal team would. Take a look at a contract the way someone in your legal team would. An example, just an easy one. If I go to ChatGPT and I upload a contract and I say, summarize this contract for me, I might get a great response. I might not.
Yeah.
Summary might say, well, this appears to be a contract, and there are two parties to the contract, and the contract has an effective date, and it has terms, and it may be signed by both parties. It tells me so much without telling me anything, right? And so that was a big problem that we aim to solve in Aracor, was the idea of being able to create a tool that thinks the way that somebody in my team thinks, behaves the way someone in my team behaves, and that I don't have to do a lot of prompting to get the tool to that point. So if I click a button saying generate a summary, like I don't have to tell someone in my legal team, make sure you tell me that this is what I want in the summary, right? They already know. So those are the types of things you need to look for in the tools. So imagine again, LLM, ChatGPT, super, super smart freshman in college. You then want a tool that graduated from law school or med school, etc. It still doesn't replace the human. It's an assistant, right? But it's a much more specific, trained assistant. The next big challenge has to do with data security and privacy. And so I think that there's a lot of challenges there as well, especially when we're dealing with industries like law, like healthcare, finance, etc., that just going out and using, whatever AI tool is on the market or easily available or accessible is not really the right way to go because of these privacy issues, security issues, how the models use your data, how data is used for training, how the data is protected. So that's another thing that I think about a lot, is how to create a platform that's really secure, enterprise grade, and that's also future proof, because of the fact that the technology is changing so quickly that whatever we build today is going to be obsolete tomorrow. So another question becomes, for a user, how do you get somebody to choose what software they're going to use that's specialized for their use case, that has these security measures, and that's going to grow with the technology?
Awesome. So those three aspects, I imagine, are all integrated in Aracor.
Absolutely.
And so could you share maybe like a specific example of tech innovation that you have integrated in Aracor that is going to dramatically transform a firm's operation or the day-to-day of an in-house lawyer?
Sure. So what we focused on a lot, right? I mean, there are lots of companies that focus on many, many different things. I focused on the areas that, for me, take up the most of my time as an attorney, right? I wanted to create the product that solved my problems, and then I just hope that that's the problems of others as well. So the first issue that I have is what I was talking to you about with regard to knowledge management and being able to review and dive in. So I had a situation where we did an M&A project, an acquisition a few years ago, a very complex acquisition, and the legal bills came out to $500,000. Very big firm. And I looked at these legal bills and I thought, okay, 90% of these legal bills are being spent not on significant real legal advice, but just on reading lots of documents and telling me what they say. And the people who are reading these documents and telling me what they say, they're very early stage associate, young lawyers. That's a lot of money to spend, right? So the ability to go ahead and do that is something we started working on. That sounds easier than it is. Because people will say, oh, but ChatGPT, but this AI, but that, you can use something on the internet, it's so easy, everything does summaries now. Not really. What you have to start thinking about is when you're doing things at a very high level, when you're looking at corporate documents, when you're looking at, let's say, a massive shareholder agreement, all of the side letters and amendments, and it's like 1,000 pages over 10 years, you're dealing with very complex language. You're dealing with various documents that all impact the other document, right? And modify each other and modify the meaning. And you're dealing with the fact that documents in the real world, they're not beautiful and perfect. They have coffee stains and ink stains and signatures all over them. And sometimes they're in a different language, and sometimes it's a bad scan, and sometimes it's a photograph of a scan, right? And so you need to have amazing OCR. You need to have the amazing ability to look at very large volumes of documents that are all kind of messy and make sense of them. And that's much harder than it seems. It's not the same thing as uploading, 5 pages into ChatGPT and just getting a quick summary. And making sure that you're getting a summary that's good enough that you don't then need to read all the documents yourself to make sure that the tool was accurate. So we have an interface where you're able to see the document at all times. We have citations at all times. You're always able to trust and verify. It goes ahead with one click. It will summarize everything in a folder, explaining to you the whole history, the entire story of what's going on. And then you can go ahead and you can ask more questions and interact with the tool to kind of hone in. So it's as good as a paralegal, right? It might not be perfect, but it's going to move you very, very far. So that's one of our tools. That tool, we also are working on the ability to have insights through charts, graphs, right? Visual representations, red flag reports. Let's say I throw in 100 employment agreements of a company, I'll instantly in 1 second be able to get a report telling me, who didn't sign an IP assignment agreement, or what are the other things that we should be aware of. So that's one thing. Another thing that we created was a redlining and markup tool. So you're able to pre-program it to go ahead and negotiate contracts. It's meant for simple routine agreements, sales contracts, non-disclosure agreements, employment agreements, master services agreements, but you're able to go ahead and customize the instruction and save those instructions for the future as well. So that's something that lawyers can use, or a company that doesn't have an in-house team can work with a lawyer to pre-program it, and then they can go ahead and start scaling their ability to mark up contracts at a very, very fast rate. So that's another tool we have that we're very excited about. We now are about to introduce a bunch of small language models. So we've been working with open source tools to create our own language models, SLMs. So we're able to deploy our tools privately. So we can offer very, very high level security measures. We can also just offer a better level of quality when we talk about things like OCR, which, as I mentioned, is the ability to look at, very badly scanned documents and the like, right? And just create higher quality products in general.
Well, super exciting feature that I can see the impact on a firm or on a firm operation. If you could distill 3 key messages for legal professionals about embracing technology and leadership, what would be those 3 key messages at this moment?
The 3 messages for embracing technology and also leadership?
Yes.
Sure. So I think the first one with embracing technology is just use it. Is a big thing, because the problem with lawyers, and I have this in my own legal team, right? Remember, I have a legal team reporting to me. I'm their boss, and I have a software company, and I'm like, use this tool, use this tool, use this tool. And even getting that adoption inside my team was not easy. And the reason for that is because when you're an attorney, you're so busy. We work so much. And lawyers, especially in America, they're expected to be on call all the time. I mean, I've answered emails in the middle of the night. I've, closed down deals on New Year's Eve. We've all done it. And so being asked to do one extra thing on top of everything else we do, it's overwhelming. It's really overwhelming. And lawyers in general, we're not trained to be super tech savvy. That's not what we're good at. You have to start using the tools and really working with the tools and understanding the tools and mastering the tools and spending that initial amount of time upfront to get a great result later on. It pays off in massive dividends. I will tell you that while I'm CEO and founder of Aracor, I continue to be the chief legal officer of the Constructor Group of companies. And people are always asking me, how do you do it? How do you do it? And I'm like, because I have a legal tech tool, right? I cut my time as an attorney in half because I started using AI. So of course I now have more time to build other things. So just getting used to it, getting accustomed, but not just sitting on webinars and reading, but like actually using the tools in your day-to-day work until it becomes something that becomes second nature, I think is really critical. So that's the first thing that I would really talk about. I think the second thing that I would talk about is, well, so for numbers 2 and 3, right? In terms of everything, this is just my philosophy in work and life. I give the same speech to everyone I've ever hired. So I obviously oversee lawyers, HR people, software developers, marketing, you have it. I've interviewed hundreds of people in my lifetime. I always tell people, when you come and work in my team, I care about 2 things. And really, that's it. Exceptional organizational abilities and mindset. Because knowledge, learning, skills, experience, you can figure out all that yourself. And that all comes, right? Like Google it. Go look it up on an AI tool, right? Open a book. Like you can learn whatever you want to learn. Ask somebody for help. But if you don't have superior organizational skills, you will fall behind because every day is sort of things building on top of each other, etc. And I think in order to be a great leader, I think in order to be a great follower, a great employee, great in any industry or business, being really, really organized is critical. I think it's much more respectful to your peers. I think it helps you manage up and down. Just as an example, right? Like so many people I've seen over many years, same thing happens on day 1. I give people a bunch of instructions and I say, okay, I'm going to train you. And I'll say, are you writing notes? And the person 9 times out of 10 wants to impress me and will say, I don't need to take notes. I got it. Every time, every single time, like clockwork, right? And I say, I know you're trying to look like you're going to impress me because you got it, you're paying attention. And I know maybe you think that, but what you don't understand is tomorrow, I'm going to give you even more instructions.
Yeah.
There's going to be more and more and more and more and more. And you're going to forget what I told you on day 1. So start taking notes, right? Think of yourself as a goldfish. You're not going to remember anything in 30 seconds. Prepare for that future for yourself. And so my legal team is super well organized, and we have to be because we deal with so much paperwork all the time, and files and deals and everything. And it makes us much faster, even though it's annoying to everybody in the beginning. All of my little organizational quirks. Like I'm crazy about how you save a file, how you name it, how you write to someone in an email, what the subject line should, like all these things. But if you work with me for 5 years, you start seeing why it matters. And then that brings me to number 3, mindset. What I've seen in my career is that where somebody ends up professionally, people don't like it when I say this. I strongly believe it. I would say it's 99% correlated to that person's mindset. People decide for themselves how far they're going to go in life. I've seen it over and over and over again. People have some sort of limiting belief about themselves, like, oh, I could never be this. Or, oh, I don't have the intelligence for that. Or, oh, I never learned this and this thing that I need to learn in order to get there. And then they just stop themselves. Why they stop themselves, I don't know. Maybe some people really think people are content and happy doing what it is that they do, and that's fine. But those limiting beliefs and that idea that your abilities are fixed and your personality is fixed, it creates a lot of problems because first of all, it limits people in how far they can go. And second of all, I think it creates a lot of ego issues in teams. So what happens is like, I was interviewing somebody a few months ago, for example, and I told this candidate, I said, listen, if you work for me, you have to get used to the fact that I'm going to criticize everything all the time. Everything that you send me, I'm going to say, no, do it again, do it again, do it again. Do you have a thick skin for that? Because it's not about you. It's not about me judging your inherent qualities or abilities or saying you're bad. It's that I want to achieve a certain level of excellence. And if you throw your ego out the window and you're like, oh, it's bad, let me redo it. Let me redo it. And you just think of it as a game until we get to that place, you're going to be so successful and the company is going to be so successful. But that's not easy for most people because most people are so attached to what they think their strengths are and their weaknesses that when something, doesn't align with how they see themselves, or when they're asked to do something that they think that they're bad at doing, people have a lot of challenges with that. And I always try to get rid of that in my team and say, like, you don't worry about who you are. You don't exist, right? You just keep kind of focusing on the goal, and eventually you get there. So.
Yeah, I so agree with you on the 3 points, and especially on the mindset one. I work because I work with organizations on how to reinvent themselves, or also with executives. And I have like my model is, because it's all about future fit. For this reason, the podcast is a future fit edge podcast. And the process that I'm using is a fit ecosystem. And the F is for future fit mindset. It's all about identifying our limiting beliefs and take them down to really develop like a growth mindset, and also like mental toughness, which is what you are talking about, having like those thick skin, because this is the fundamentals to really build the rest of the house. So now we learn a lot from you about business models, obstacles, how you work, and what will be practical for legal professionals to really thrive in this AI world. But I also consider that it's important to not lose our humanity when we are each time getting more immersed on an AI world. So we'd love to know you a bit more, like on a personal level now, after taking a bit of taking all those insights on your legal expertise. Between paper books and digital books, your preference?
Oh,
Which one do
that's
you
so
prefer?
hard. I love them both. I can't
Really?
answer that question. There's something, as there's something about a paper book that captures my attention more, and it feels really calming to be away from digital tools, not have my computer and not have anything in front of me, and just have that book and feel the paper. And I think it's so fun. But the truth is, when I'm traveling all the time and running, like, I can't pack 10 books into my suitcase.
Yeah.
So I have tons of ebooks, and I have a Blinkist app too for all the summaries. So that's a toss.
Both. That works for me. I love tech, but I'm still not able to make the transition to digital books. So it's still all about like paper books. And now to learn between books, so digital or paper, whatever works for you, and podcasts. What is your preference
Books.
to get new insight? Books?
Books. I am so visual.
Me too.
I need to read and see things in front of me. When I hear audio, right, it's much harder for me to process and to remember. And so I know a lot of people who love to listen to podcasts because they do it when they're driving, when they're exercising, etc. And for me, I'll lose my train of thought. So I'm definitely much more about reading than I am about podcasts. Although,
Awesome. Good. And a hobby you wish you would have more time for?
a hobby I wish exercise. I I used to be an exercise fanatic, and then I became a mother and have a business and everything else, and I try to get in my 10,000 steps a day. I try to go to the gym, all of that, but it's still not at the level of what it used to be. And I definitely wish I worked out more. I should work out more. I'm going to find time to exercise more. See, it's mindset.
Awesome. So now my question is totally opposite to fitness and exercise. Do you have a comfort food? And what is your comfort food when you are like on cheat days for fitness?
I have so many comfort foods. Okay. And unfortunately, I love food. So I will tell you my big one's ice cream, first of all. That's like, I love ice cream. I love ice cream on a different level. So for me, I'm very happy. I'm even happy with, the McDonald's soft serve cone for $1.
Yes.
That's like, that for me, that's the amazing Saturday night. So I love that. I love pizza, pasta. I love food, right?
Good. So you're able to balance your love
I
of
need to
food and
exercise
fitness.
because I
This
love
is
food.
good. And if you had the opportunity to have coffee, lunch, dinner, a time, with a famous person who is alive today, with whom would you have to spend time with?
That's such a great question. In this day and age, I would be really, really interested actually to go. I'm going to say the same answer I would have given when I was 10 years old, Madonna.
Oh,
I was slow for a second because I wanted to give some very intellectual response, right? And be like Salman Rushdie or something like that. I'm going to be truthful. I want to hang out with Madonna. She's the best. I have so much admiration for that woman.
so we are going to put it out, and I hope this will happen. It's
I
out
hope so.
there now.
That would be the best. She's, my whole life, because she's fearless.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what I've
Definitely.
always admired.
Great. So you are doing an awesome thing because you are like a tech CEO putting something new that is going to be revolutionary. But do you have a fantasy job?
Fashion. I should have
Ah,
looked into that. And my obsession is fashion. And for me, it's always been this challenge as a lawyer. When I was younger, I wanted so badly to be taken seriously and taken as a professional that I was always in black suits with a white button-down shirt and all that. And that was my sort of professional persona. Right? But my private persona was completely different. And the one big thing that I've given myself permission to do with age and with achieving what I've achieved in my career is not to care as much anymore. And so the worlds definitely get blended. But for me, fashion is my favorite. I love art very much too. I collect some art. I like to go to art fairs. But fashion, it's wearable art, right? I get to be a new character
yes.
every time I put something on. I have different ideas in my head. I think a lot about different eras in fashion and all of that. So I wish I could have had a separate secret career, but I don't know what I'm.
You can still make it because you're young. So once like Aracor is launched and thriving, this could be like your third act.
My
Five.
third, I start my own clothing brand or something. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, you don't know. And last question, what would you do with 1 additional hour a day instead of
With
24 hours, 25?
1 a day. Sleep.
Good, it's a good one. So thank you very much, Katya, for your time, for sharing all those insights, not only on your personal side, so we could discover the person behind this legal tech visionary, and to share about Aracor, how you are bringing a solution to the market, and also sharing the obstacles in the legal industry. And thanks a lot to our friends and listeners. I hope you get a lot of insights, and also you will be inspired to take action on the 3 steps that Katya shared about use technology, develop exceptional organizational skills, and grow your mindset. Please like, share, subscribe, and also input comments and questions below the podcast, and happily Katya or myself, we will answer. So again, thank you, Katya.
Cindy, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
Me too. And see you to our friends for the next episode of the Future Fit Edge podcast. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Future Fit Edge podcast. To keep the conversation going, follow me on LinkedIn and subscribe to my newsletter. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to subscribe, rate, and share on your favorite podcast platform. See you next time.